guys, it's Luke bringing you a preview for this weekend's UFC card where we have Cannonier going against Gastelum on Draftkings. These are going to be my top 6 fighters to target for GPP contests on Draftkings to help you guys take down a big contest this weekend and win some money. These are going to be the fighters with the highest potential for a KO, submission, whether it's a ton of takedowns. The people that are going to score the most fantasy points this weekend, these are the top 6 according to my custom modeling. Kicking it off at number 6, we have Brandon Royval going against Alexandre Pantoja. He's a plus 145 underdog. I really think he should be the favorite in this case, though. Coming in at $7,300, you also get a ton of salary flexibility. And he's facing the second hardest opponent he's ever fought in the UFC. It's hard to believe that in just his third fight, Pantoja would be the second hardest level of competition. But his last time out, he lost against current champ Brandon Moreno. That fight was a little bit over 6 months ago. Moreno ended up kicking his butt in that fight. But he ended up making it the whole way to a decision against who is the current champ. So after that fight against Royval, Moreno went on that famous run, ended up, upsetting Davis and Figueiredo in their last bout. And now that loss looks a lot, better on Royval's record. It looks negligible at this point. He had just 2 UFC fights to that point, and he was fighting against someone who was going to be the champion. So if we take a look at his career numbers, he has finished 92% of his wins either by knockout or submission, most of them being by submission. He tends to be a little bit of a wrestling and submission specialist, but he showed the ability to strike on the feet against Brandon Moreno. Moreno was able to survive against Davis and Figueiredo, actually ended up TKOing him. And if you take a look at Royval, he was able to survive all 3 rounds against him on the feet. Was able to land some clean strikes of his own. So while it didn't look great, obviously he's fighting a championship level striker. I think it's going to look a little bit different this time around. And Pantoja's no slouch, obviously. He's somebody who can mix in wrestling. He's very decent on the feet as well. But Royval is a younger fighter, somebody I think that is more explosive. I think he obviously has more finishing ability with 93% of his fights ending by finish. He has immense upside in GPPs as a result and gives plenty of salary savings along the way. At number 5, we have Chase Sherman fighting against Parker Porter. He's a sizable favorite in this one at minus 190, and you're going to have to pay a little bit higher for him as a result. He comes in at $9,200, but this fight's going to be an absolute war. Somebody's getting finished. Parker Porter's a high output striker. Same thing with Chase Sherman. They both boast very good finishing rates as well. But I'm definitely taking the Chase Sherman side of this. I think he has the cardio edge. I also think that he has the power edge as well. And for his career, just for evidence of that, he has won 94% of his fights by KO. He only has 1 decision win on his record. While Porter has shown a more well-rounded approach, he finishes 70% of his fights himself. He mixes in submissions, he mixes in KOs here and there. His power output is not what gets him those finishes. It's typically a TKO in the 2nd or 3rd round. He does it with his high volume. He kind of makes his opponents wilter under that pressure. But with Chase Sherman, he has a very similar fighting style. His high output, goes out, lays the hammer on people, sometimes knocks them out with his power as well. So as a result, I'm looking for the guy that has that X factor, and in this fight, that is Chase Sherman. We also, it's worth mentioning that he has a very good takedown defense. So like I mentioned, Parker Porter does have some submission ability on his record. Chase Sherman has a 78% takedown defense, so I don't expect him to land very many takedowns even if he tries to. At number 4, we have Marco Madsen. He is fighting for the 3rd time in the UFC, fighting against Clay Guida, a favorite in this one, even though he's having a relative step up in competition at minus 165, and he's also getting a huge price up on Draftkings at $9,100. So I think he has the potential to put up the highest score on the entire slate, especially given he's a volume wrestler. Coming into his 3rd bout, he's averaged a whopping 8.34 takedowns per 15 minutes. You get 5 points for every takedown on DraftKings, so that's 40 points built in right there. It's pretty hard to lose a fight when you land 8 takedowns as well. But on top of that, you get credit for your control time, you get credit for advances. Obviously, you can get a finish with a submission there. So I really like his chances to go out and put up a high score in a decision win. But he also showed KO upside in his first appearance in the UFC. And I did a little bit of a deeper dive into his regional scene record, and he actually has a 60% finish rate. It's actually closer to 75% if we just look at his regional fights. And Clay Guida used to be a guy that you were scared of. He's extremely tough, has a very good chin, can mix in the wrestling as well. But he's much older now. He lacks the gas tank that we we saw in his early days when he got into a lot of those wars. And against someone that's an uppercomer like Marco Madsen, I expect him just to style over him. You know, he's going to put the pressure on him. He's going to put a lot of volume onto him. The price tag isn't great, but given the takedown upside, given his ability to go out and put up 120, 130 fantasy points, you definitely are going to want to sprinkle him into some GPP lineups. At number 3, we have Jared Cannonier, obviously from the headliner fight, fighting against Kevin Gastelum. He's the favorite in the headline. He's a minus 160, priced at $8,700 on Draftkings. This is going to be an electric fight. You have two strikers that love to go to war, that love high-pressure volume fights as well. And I really like the Cannonier side of things, especially considering the recent form of the two fighters. I think that's really the deciding factor here. Coming into the fight, Cannonier's 3-1 of his last 4 bouts with 3 impressive KO victories. Gastelum, on the other hand, he's fought harder competition. Obviously, former champions, people that are legends of the sport. He's 1-3 coming in. So one of them has the momentum. One of them has a lot of negative momentum. And obviously, even though Gastelum was fighting some of the best competition in the world, it's really hard to tell how good of a fighter he is anymore. Anyone's going to lose against those fighters. Cannonier would probably have lost those fights as well. But we saw the potential that Cannonier has, and we've seen it over his career with his 69% KO rate. Those 3 KO wins, again, were very impressive. Most of them, 2 of them in the first round, 1 of them in the second round. He has the more polished striking ability as well. He has higher volume than Gastelum. He has more precision, and he also has better defensive stats as well. So if it goes to a decision, Cannonier is going to win this fight. The one X factor that Gastelum does have is his takedowns and is his submission threats. Cannonier doesn't really have that same type of threat. We haven't seen Gastelum use this for about 5-6 fights now, though. So again, we don't know what kind of fighter Gastelum is anymore. He's starting to get over the hill at this point. We haven't seen him use his wrestling in quite some time. So Jared Cannonier is definitely the side I'm taking for GPP formats, for cash formats as well. I think he has an exceptional floor. I think he wins a decision at the very least, and in a 5-round bout, that's going to be plenty of scoring. And I think he has a KO upside as well. We've seen him win 3 out of his last 4 fights by KO. Kevin Gastelum has been KO'd in the past, and could very well happen again. At number 2, we have Trevin Jones fighting against a UFC newcomer, Mana Martinez. He's a relatively big favorite at minus 170. I think it should be closer to minus 300, to be quite honest with you. And it's a relative value at $8,800 as a result. In his last bout canceled, his opponent got COVID, I believe. But I'm excited to see the finishing artist back in the octagon. He's facing a UFC newcomer, like I said. He's a brawler too, so that should bode very well for somebody like Trevin Jones. And not only does Trevin Jones have the death touch with his hands, he also has submission threats as well. He has over a 53% finish rate, and that's despite having a ton of fights on his record. In Martinez, you do have a guy that has wins on his record, all of them by KO, but all of them on the regional scene. So obviously he's got a chin, he's got some polished striking ability. But with Trevin Jones, he obviously has that as well. He's a high volume striker, he's relatively fast on his feet as well, has that death touch. And the X factor here is definitely Trevin Jones' wrestling. Somebody who's very powerful, very strong for his division. Mana Martinez has all of his wins by KO, so we don't really know if he has that, submission threat. We don't know if he has that wrestling ability. But Trevin Jones is coming in that massive favorite for a reason. So I expect Trevin Jones to win by submission the first or second round. If Martinez has a little bit of takedown defense, he's able to keep it standing. I still think that he falls to Trevin Jones' power. We've seen it plenty of times before. 3 out of the last 4 fights, Trevin Jones has gone that finish. I think he's a must-play in cash games. He's pretty much going to get a finish 80-90% of the time, and a borderline lock in GPPs as well. And finally, for my number 1 pick, we have Brian Kelleher fighting against Domingo Pilarte this week. Also a favorite at minus 175. You're going to have to pay up for Kelleher at $9,000. But he's my number 1 pick this week because he has the highest upside of anyone on the slate. He has an intriguing matchup against Pilarte. Pilarte is a pure wrestler, does not really have anything in terms of hands on the feet. Kelleher, fortunately, is one of the strongest bantamweights in the world. He looks massive for a bantamweight. He also boasts a 76% takedown defense. So even if Pilarte is going to try and beat him with volume wrestling, we've seen Kelleher stuff these takedowns in the past. And if he wants to shoot on him, Kelleher also has very good submissions. He's finished 43% of his fights by submission. So if he goes in, Pilarte that is, and is a little bit clumsy, is a little bit lackadaisical, he could very well be put in a choke or a rear naked choke, that kind of thing. Another thing I like is that if it's on the feet, Kelleher is going to win in like the first like 30, 40 seconds. He has that kind of power with his hands. He's, again, one of the strongest bantamweights in the world. And Pilarte is somebody who's had his light shut off before, somebody who doesn't really have anything in terms of hands, like I was saying. And the possibility here is that we get a first minute knockout. If Pilarte can't land a knockdown, if he's not able to get inside range, Kelleher is just going to absolutely tee off on him. So I absolutely love him as a pick this week. And given that it's 3 rounds, Pilarte is not going to be able to hold him down for all 3 rounds, given his takedown defense. I think it's essentially a lock play for GPPs. That's all I've got for this week's UFC preview, guys. Let me know in the comments who your favorite fighter the target is for UFC for a chance to win a free month of my Patreon projections. And as always, guys, make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the content. Not only does it really help me out with growing this channel, it also makes sure that you guys are able to see my content as soon as I post it. You can also hit the little bell there on the side. It'll give you a notification when I post if you guys want to catch it as soon as it goes up. As always, good luck with your lineups this weekend, guys. You can feel free to post any questions in the comments as well. I'll be here. I'm a resource for you guys. And coming next month, we're going to have the full-time Patreon launched for UFC. We'll have projections coming week in and week out. We'll have my custom modeling on there. So keep an eye out for that, guys, and I'll have all that out coming shortly. Next week, we have a UFC card, UFC 266, so keep an eye out for that as well.